The first scream didn't come from a patient. It came from the hallway, sharp and panicked, the kind that makes every head turn at once and every instinct misfire. A man in a grey suit was being forced face down onto the tile by hospital security, his cheek grinding against the floor, his glasses skidding away. He kept shouting one sentence over and over, his voice cracking, spitting rage and disbelief. "I pay for this place. I pay all of you." It was 7:36 in the evening, a damp Monday in late October, and the emergency department at Harbour Ridge Medical Center froze mid-motion. A cardiac monitor kept beeping, steady and indifferent. A gurney wheel squealed. Somewhere, a woman coughed behind a curtain. The security guard, red-faced and shaking, tightened his grip. "Sir, you're trespassing. You need to calm down." The man laughed, breathless, unhinged. "Trespassing? I sit on the board." Near the medication cart, almost out of frame, stood Claire Donovan. 34 years old, navy scrubs, hair pulled back too tight, like she needed the pressure to keep herself contained. She hadn't moved when the scream hit. She hadn't flinched when the man was slammed down. She was watching the security guard's hands, the tremor in his wrists, the way fear crept into his posture. She noticed the smell first. Alcohol, expensive cologne trying to cover it. Charge nurse Evelyn Brooks leaned toward her, voice low, irritated. "Don't stare. Go restock Bay 3. Claire nodded, already stepping away, already dismissed. To everyone else, this was just another entitled man having a meltdown in a public hospital. Another mess for security to clean up. No one noticed the way Claire's jaw tightened. No one noticed her eyes, steady and cold, following the man on the floor as he finally stopped shouting and started smiling. And no one, not yet, understood why that smile made her pulse slow instead of race. Claire Donovan stocked Bay 3 with the precision of someone counting seconds instead of supplies. Saline bag, pressure cuff, trauma shears aligned, not tossed. Her hands didn't shake. They never did. Around her, the department exhaled and pretended nothing had happened, but the air stayed tight, metallic, like before a storm breaks. The man in the grey suit was gone now, escorted out through the side doors, still smiling, still humming under his breath like he'd lost nothing at all. "Unbelievable," Evelyn muttered at the desk, snapping a chart closed. "These people think money makes them immune to gravity." A resident laughed too loudly. Someone else shook their head. The moment became a joke, because jokes were easier than questions. Claire said nothing. She was listening to the building, the low groan of the HVAC, the uneven rhythm of footsteps, the faint argument bleeding through a curtain to her left. In Bay 4, an older woman clutched her chest, eyes wet, breath shallow. Her husband hovered uselessly, hands opening and closing like he was trying to remember how to pray. "They keep saying, 'Wait,'" he whispered to no one. Claire stepped in without asking, adjusted the oxygen line, met the woman's eyes. "I'm here," she said, calm and plain. The woman's shoulders dropped an inch. Sometimes that was enough. From the desk, Dr. Alan Pierce watched Claire work, his expression unreadable. Mid-40s, clean coat, a man who liked control and hated surprises. "Donovan," he called, "you're on floats tonight. Don't freelance." She looked back at him, nodded once. Then the intercom crackled. Not an alert, not a code, just one word, mispronounced, hesitant. "Security to Bay 7. Claire's gaze lifted. Her mouth went dry. Bay 7 had been empty 5 minutes ago. Somewhere deep in the department, a door slammed. The monitors didn't change, but the room felt heavier, like the floor had shifted a fraction of an inch. Claire moved before anyone told her to, her steps quiet, her face unreadable, her pulse steady. Whatever was coming next wasn't loud yet, but it was close. Bay 7 smelled wrong. Not blood, not antiseptic. Something sweet and sour, like panic mixed with cheap whiskey. Claire reached the curtain and stopped. Inside, the man from the hallway sat on the edge of the gurney, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled, palms flat on his thighs, as if he were waiting for a verdict. A security guard stood by the door, young, jaw clenched, eyes flicking to the exit every few seconds. "I told them I'm fine," the man said, voice smooth now, controlled. He looked up and smiled when he saw Claire. Recognition flashed, sharp and pleased. "You're not security." "No," she said. She didn't step closer. She didn't ask his name. "You were brought in for evaluation." "For embarrassment," he corrected. "For spectacle." His gaze dropped to her badge, lingered there a beat too long. Claire Donovan. Night shift. He nodded, like filing it away. "You saw what happened. That kid had his hands all over me." The security guard shifted. "Sir, you need to stay seated." The man ignored him. "Do you know what happens when someone like me gets put on the floor?" His voice softened, almost kind. "People lose jobs. Not today. Not tomorrow. But it comes." Claire felt the weight of the room press in. She could hear Evelyn's voice at the desk, muffled, irritated. Dr. Pierce laughing at something that wasn't funny. The system doing what it always did, smoothing sharp edges to protect itself. She stepped forward then, just one pace. Close enough to see the red veins in the man's eyes. Close enough to smell the alcohol bleeding through the cologne. "You're not here because you were tackled," she said. "You're here because you were shaking. Because your speech slurred. Because you told a stranger you owned the building." His smile thinned. "Careful." Claire met his stare and didn't blink. "Sit back," she said, quiet and final. "Or this becomes medical. And medical leaves a paper trail no board vote can erase." For the first time, the man hesitated. The security guard exhaled, barely. Somewhere outside the curtain, a monitor alarm chirped, then went silent. Claire stayed where she was, unmoving, as the balance in the room tipped, slow and irreversible. Dr. Alan Pierce arrived at Bay 7 with the confidence of a man who believed his presence alone could reset gravity. He didn't look at Claire at first. His eyes went straight to the man on the gurney, assessing suit, watch, posture, the invisible math of power. "Sir," he said warmly, "I'm the attending tonight. Let's clear this up." The man leaned back, relief blooming too fast. Finally, someone reasonable. His gaze flicked to Claire, sharp again. "Your nurse here is very intense." Pierce smiled thinly. "She's thorough." Then to Claire, quieter, edged with warning. "I've got this. Go help Evelyn." Claire didn't move. "He hasn't been screened," she said. "His vitals haven't been logged." He refused breathalyzer and neuro checks. Pierce's jaw tightened. "That's not your call." "It is when the patient is unstable," she replied. Her voice stayed level, but the room felt smaller. The security guard straightened, sensing the shift. The man laughed softly. "Doc, I'm not unstable. I'm inconvenienced." He turned his head, lowering his voice like they were sharing a secret. "We can all pretend this didn't happen." Claire watched Pierce hesitate. Just a beat. Long enough. She saw the calculation pass through his eyes, the cost-benefit ledger flipping pages. Around them, the department hummed, indifferent, complicit. "You're sweating," Claire said, cutting through it. "Your left hand's shaking. You've been drinking, and not just tonight." She stepped closer, eyes locked on the man now. "And you didn't come here by accident." The man's smile vanished. "You don't know a damn thing about me. I know you didn't ask for a lawyer," she said. "And I know you asked security where administration offices were before you asked for water." Silence dropped hard. Pierce opened his mouth, then closed it. The man slid off the gurney, slow, deliberate. "I think," he said, voice flat, "we're done talking." Claire didn't step back. Her pulse stayed low. "No," she said. "Now we're finally starting." The man didn't rush the door. He took his time, adjusting his cufflinks as if this were a boardroom break instead of a locked bay in an emergency department. The security guard stepped into his path, voice thin. "Sir, please get back on the bed." The man stopped inches away from him, towering, smiling without warmth. "Son," he said softly, "you don't get paid enough to touch me twice." Dr. Pierce cleared his throat, stepping forward too late. "Let's all slow this down." His hand hovered near the call button, uncertain. Claire watched the guard's breathing quicken, the micro steps backward, the fear blooming in his shoulders. She moved, not fast, but precise, placing herself just off the man's left side, where his vision didn't naturally settle. "You came here looking for something," she said. "And it wasn't medical." The man turned to her, irritation flashing. "I came here because this place answers to me." "Ooh," Claire replied. "You came because someone told you the paperwork was buried here. Incident reports, internal reviews, names." She held his gaze. "You came drunk because Tuba men lie better." The air snapped. The man lunged, not at Claire, but at the guard, shoving him aside with a sharp, practiced motion. The guard hit the wall hard, breath knocked out of him. Alarms chirped. Somewhere, someone screamed. Pierce slammed the call button at last, his face pale. Claire stepped in as the man turned, grabbing his wrist, twisting just enough to break momentum, not bone. He hissed, surprised, anger flaring. "Let go." "Sit," she said, voice low. "Dangerous." He ripped free, backing toward the door. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Claire felt it then, the old calm settling in, heavy and absolute. She reached into her pocket, not for a weapon, but for a folded badge, worn thin at the edges. She didn't show it yet. She just spoke. "I do," she said. "And you shouldn't have come alone." The badge stayed hidden, pressed flat against Claire's palm, like a secret with weight. The man's eyes tracked her hand anyway, sharp now, calculating. He backed into the door, fingers brushing the release bar. It didn't open. Locked from the outside. His jaw tightened. "You think you're brave," he said. "You're just a nurse with good timing." Claire heard the lie before he finished the sentence. She felt it in the way his breathing changed, shallow and fast, in the way his pupils refused to settle. "I think you underestimated where you walked," she replied. "Hospitals don't belong to boards at night. They belong to process." From the hallway came the sound of running feet, uneven, panicked. Evelyn's voice cut through the noise, sharp with authority she didn't usually use. "Clear the corridor, now!" Someone argued. Someone else swore. The department was waking up to the fact that this wasn't going to be smoothed over, Doctor. Pierce stood frozen near the wall, watching control slip through his fingers. "Claire," he said, too softly. "Let security handle this." She didn't look at him. "Security did handle it," she said, "until he decided rules were optional." The man laughed again, but it cracked this time. "You really think this ends well for you?" Claire stepped closer, close enough that he had to tilt his head back to meet her eyes. Her voice dropped, steady and precise. "I think you came here to erase something, and I think whatever it is, it scared you more than being put on the floor." His smile vanished completely. In its place was something older. Anger, yes, but underneath it, fear. He opened his mouth to speak, to threaten, to bargain. The intercom crackled overhead, louder than before. "Administration to emergency. Repeat, administration to emergency." Claire finally turned her hand, just enough for the edge of the badge to catch the light. Not the whole truth. Just enough. "This," she said quietly, "is where you stop talking." The door finally opened with a soft hydraulic sigh, and 2 administrators stepped in, breathless, suits rumpled, authority already leaking out of them. The man straightened instantly, shoulders back, confidence snapping into place like a practiced reflex. "Good," he said. "You're late." One of the administrators recognized him and went pale. "Mr. Harlan, we didn't realize you were still in the building." His eyes flicked to Claire, then away, as if looking at her too long might be a mistake. Harlan smiled, slow and satisfied. "There's been a misunderstanding. Your nurse got carried away." Claire watched the room tilt toward him. She saw it happen in real time, the subtle shift of bodies, the way people leaned toward power without thinking. Dr. Pierce found his voice again. "We can de-escalate," he said quickly. No reports, no formal hold. No, Claire said. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Harlan's head turned, eyes hard. Excuse me? You don't leave, she continued. Not yet. She reached into her pocket and unfolded the badge fully this time, holding it at chest height, not flashing it, not shoving it forward. The seal was old. Federal. The kind most people only saw on television. The administrators froze. One of them swallowed. Claire, he whispered, like the name itself was dangerous. Harlan stared, processing, recalculating. That's not possible, he said. You work here. I consult, she replied. When hospitals don't know what to do with men who think influence replaces law. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Somewhere down the hall, a patient laughed at a joke on a television. Life kept going, ignorant and relentless. Harlan took a step back, slower now. You're bluffing. Claire met his gaze, unwavering. Then sit down, she said, and let's wait for the people who don't. Harlan didn't sit. He laughed, short and sharp, the sound of a man cornered who still believed walls could be negotiated. Federal, he said, tasting the word. That badge could mean a dozen things. None of them give you the right to detain me. He glanced at the administrators, searching for weakness, for loyalty, for fear. He found all three. Claire felt the tempo shift. This was the dangerous part, the moment when bravado curdled into impulse. I'm not detaining you, she said. I'm documenting you. She reached past him and pressed the wall panel. The bay lights brightened. Cameras activated with a soft click, red indicators blinking alive. Every word from this moment forward is preserved. Harlan's eyes flicked to the ceiling. His jaw tightened. You think recordings scare me? No, Claire replied. Paper trails do. One administrator wiped sweat from his brow. Mr. Harlan, maybe we should step aside and discuss this privately. Harlan rounded on him. You don't tell me when to step aside. What? His voice rose, control cracking. I built this wing. I fund your salaries. Claire watched his hands clench, unclench. She saw the micro-tremor he couldn't hide anymore. You also signed off on the renovations that failed inspection, she said calmly. The ones that buried the incident reports you came here looking for. The room went still. Dr. Pierce's face drained of color. What incident? He asked, too late. Harlan's gaze snapped back to Claire, hatred naked now. You don't have that. I have enough, she said. Enough to keep you here. Enough to make tonight very long. From the hallway came the sound of heavier footsteps, not rushed, deliberate, the kind that didn't ask permission. Harlan heard it too. For the first time since he'd been forced to the floor, real fear crossed his face. Claire stepped back, giving him space he no longer deserved. This, she said quietly, is where your influence stops mattering. The men who entered didn't wear uniforms that invited debate. Dark jackets, plain clothes, no visible weapons, but the room adjusted around them anyway, like gravity had changed. One of them nodded once at Claire, a gesture so small most people missed it. Harlan didn't. He stepped back another inch, his heel catching the leg of the gurney. "This is absurd," he said, too quickly. "You can't do this without a warrant." "We're not here for an arrest," the taller man replied, voice flat. "We're here to preserve evidence." He glanced at the cameras, the monitors, the open charting screens. "Looks like that's already in progress." Harlan's mouth opened, then closed. He turned to the administrators, searching for rescue. They didn't meet his eyes. One stared at the floor. The other busied himself straightening papers that didn't need straightening. Claire leaned against the counter, pulse steady, watching Harlan shrink in real time. "You came here to make something disappear," she said. "A report. A death. A decision someone made because you asked them to." "That's a lie," Harlan snapped, but his voice wavered. "You don't know how this works." "I do," Claire said. "I've watched hospitals bend until people broke." She paused, letting the words land. "Tonight you walked into a place that doesn't bend." One of the men stepped closer to Harlan, not touching him, just close enough to be undeniable. "Sir," he said, "we're going to ask you to remain available." Harlan laughed again, but it came out wrong, brittle. "Available," he repeated. "You think this sticks?" Claire met his gaze one last time. It already has. Outside the bay, the department resumed its rhythm. Monitors beeped, shoes squeaked. A patient complained about the coffee. Life pushed forward, uncaring. Inside Bay 7, Harlan stood very still, finally understanding that whatever he had come to erase had just been written in ink he couldn't reach. The first crack came from the monitors, not from a voice. A flat tone in Bay 2, sharp and unforgiving, sliced through the department. "We've got a drop," someone shouted. "Pressure's tanking." The words rippled outward, pulling attention like a tide. Claire turned before anyone called her name. She moved fast now, pace shifting, the calm giving way to something sharper. In Bay 2, an older man lay grey and slick with sweat, eyes glassy, hands clawing at the sheets. His daughter stood frozen at the foot of the bed, mouth open, soundless. Dr. Pierce rushed in behind Claire, snapping gloves on, barking orders that overlapped and tangled. "Focus," Claire said, not loud, but it cut. She adjusted the oxygen, checked the line, read the monitor, like it was speaking directly to her. "He's bleeding internally." Pierce hesitated. "We don't have imaging yet." "We don't have time," she replied. She pressed 2 fingers into the man's abdomen, watching his face, the way pain flickered and vanished. "Call surgery. Now." In the doorway, one of the plainclothes men watched, unreadable. He glanced down at his phone, typed once, then slipped it back into his pocket. The daughter found her voice at last. "Is he going to die?" Claire looked at her. Really looked. "Not if we move," she said. "But you need to step back." The girl nodded, tears spilling, trusting a stranger because there was nothing else to do. As the gurney rolled, Claire caught her reflection in the glass. Navy scrubs, blood on her sleeve, eyes steady. She remembered other rooms, other alarms, places where help came too late because power argued while people bled. Behind her, Bay 7 stayed quiet. Harlan remained boxed in by process and witnesses, shrinking as the hospital reclaimed its purpose. Claire followed the gurney down the hall, voice steady, hands sure. Whatever tonight had started as, it was no longer about him. It was about whether the system could still save someone when tested. The operating room doors closed with a muted thud, sealing off the chaos. The corridor fell into a held breath. Claire stood with her back to the wall, palms resting on the cool tile, listening to the sounds on the other side fade into focused murmurs. Dr. Pierce paced once, then stopped, hands on his hips, finally looking at her without the armor of rank. "You were right," he said, the words scraped raw. "About all of it." She didn't answer. She watched a transport orderly push an empty gurney past, wheels whispering. She watched Evelyn at the desk, shoulders squared, issuing orders with a steadiness she hadn't shown before tonight. Something had shifted. Not loudly. Permanently. One of the plainclothes men approached, voice low. "Surgery says the bleed was caught in time." He paused. "Your documentation was thorough." Claire nodded once. Relief came later, always did. "Bay 7?" she asked. "Contained," he said. For now. A woman in a cardigan hovered near the wall, eyes red, hands clasped too tight. The patient's daughter. She stepped forward when she saw Claire. "They said he stabilized," she whispered, afraid to trust it. "He did," Claire said. "He's strong." The woman's knees buckled. Claire caught her elbow, held until the shaking passed. Gratitude poured out in broken sentences. Claire listened, steady, absorbing what she could without taking it inside. Down the hall, voices rose, then hushed. Administration had arrived in full. Doors closed. Names were spoken carefully. Claire felt the weight of it pressing in, the old familiar pressure of being seen at the wrong moment. She straightened, smoothing blood from her sleeve. Whatever came next would not be gentle. But the patient was alive, and tonight that had been the point. Dawn crept in through the narrow windows above the ambulance bay, pale and indifferent, washing the night clean without asking permission. Claire stood alone near the lockers, changing out of her blood-stained scrubs, the fabric heavy in her hands. Somewhere behind closed doors, lawyers were already choosing words. Administrators were already rehearsing concern. And Harlan was already becoming a liability instead of a benefactor. That part no longer belonged to her. She stepped back into the department wearing a fresh set of navy scrubs, no badge visible now, just another nurse starting another shift. Evelyn met her eyes from the desk and gave a single nod. Not gratitude, not fear, but recognition. Dr. Pierce passed by a moment later, slower than usual, his voice quieter when he spoke to staff, his gaze careful when it brushed past Claire. The system hadn't healed overnight, but it had been forced to remember what it was for. Outside, the city moved on. Buses hissed. Coffee steamed. People complained about traffic and weather, and things that still worked. Inside Harbour Ridge, a man slept in recovery, who would have died if power had been allowed to argue 1 minute longer. Claire paused at the exit, hand on the door, feeling the ache settle into her bones now that the adrenaline was gone. She didn't look back. She never did. Some nights you hold the line. Some nights you remind a system what it owes. And then you go home. If this story stayed with you, take a second to like it and subscribe for more stories about quiet strength and unseen authority. And in the comments, leave 3 words. Hold the line.